Settle in. Breathe slow. Tonight, we follow Cersei Lannister. Golden, ruthless, tragically human, through prophecy, power, and ruin. If this calm journey helps you drift, tap subscribe so these bedtime epics keep coming. Now dim the lights and hear a lioness's life told softly, chapter by chapter, like falling snow beneath stars. The sea breathes under Casterly Rock, and a girl in gold listens to its patience. She learns the language of stone. The rock says that time is weight, that power is weight, that names are weight worn like a crown you cannot take off. Her father is a lesson spoken in iron. He does not raise his voice. He raises expectations. She studies at a table where maps look like futures. She touches the threads and learns how to pull. She is a mirror and a flame. Her twin is the first mirror. Her twin is a door in a wall that has no other doors. In hallways washed with salt air, two children race and the world narrows to laughter. In courtyards dappled with sunlight, two young lions make promises no priest can bless. They grow and the rock grows with them. Silk dresses become armor. Smiles become signals. Silence becomes a blade no one sees until it is too late. Far away, a mad king looks at her father and says no. The word is a spark landing on dry grass. Cersei hears it from behind a curtain, and the world tilts. She feels the slight as if it were a hand on her cheek. She holds still and builds a city of resolve behind her eyes. If doors will not open, she will become the key. If the world says no, she will make a new world that says yes. A rumor is a moth that finds its way to a candle. A name is a door that pretends to be a wall. She hears that her father once dreamed of a match that would bind gold to fire. She hears that pride can be punished. She files it away like a secret coin in a hidden purse. One day there's a path through dark trees. She walks it with girls who pretend not to be afraid. A tent waits in a hollow like a mouth. The air is damp with old stories. Maggie the Frog looks at Cersei as if she has already seen the end of the book. The girl in gold does not flinch. She tastes copper on her tongue. She asks the future to show its teeth. It does. 3 children, crowns of gold, shrouds of gold. A younger, more beautiful queen to take all she holds dear. Cersei listens as if to rain on oiled canvas. She smiles because smiling is a shield. She leaves and the world feels smaller. She leaves and the world feels sharper. She decides that prophecy is only a wall if you do not learn where it crumbles. Her twin is warmth behind a locked door. Her twin is her and not her. They steal moments the way thieves steal fruit in summer markets. There are no witnesses in secret rooms except breathing and the night that holds it. Love is a secret that weighs as much as a kingdom. Love is a sword hidden in embroidered cloth. She learns to carry it without a sound. The realm shakes. Names go to war. A rebellion is a rope pulled by too many hands. Cersei watches from the high windows of the rock. She watches banners move like thoughts across a field. She watches a lion measure and wait and arrive when the noise is almost over. The old king breaks. The new king rises. The girl in gold becomes a bride. The ring is a circle that looks like victory and feels like a cage. Robert Baratheon smells like victories he cannot remember and vows he does not keep. He is a storm that has lost its shore. He loves a ghost with red hair. Cersei learns to sit beside a man without being near him. She learns how to pour wine so gently it sounds like rain. She learns how to hide in plain sight. When the crown is set upon her, it is colder than she imagined. She wears it anyway. She does not bend. She keeps her secrets and lets the court keep its illusions. At night, the city hums. At dawn, the city forgets. She walks marble that remembers every footstep. She practices the art of choosing which truths to kill and which lies to raise as heirs. Robert hunts. Robert laughs. Robert falls asleep in chairs where other men sit. The royal bed is a battlefield without trumpets. Cersei sleeps like a cat with its eyes open. She counts favors the way moneylenders count coins. She keeps a ledger in her ribcage. The boy Joffrey is a bright knife. He does not know how to be dull. His smile cuts the room. He looks at the world and sees a stage. He looks at pain and sees a crown. Cersei sees him and sees herself with no breaks. She loves him as if love could be a wall against the wind. She loves him as if love were enough. In the north, snow holds its breath. A boy climbs. A tower waits. A choice arrives that cannot be unchosen. The air up there is thin and honest. Cersei hears the fall without being there. She feels the sound travel through stone to her bones. A lie is born to cradle truth until the truth stops moving. The lie is heavy. The lie must be fed. A wolf mother watches with eyes like winter. A stag father drinks. A lioness decides to keep her cubs breathing. The king rides away from the place where everything began to tilt. South, the city widens like a mouth. A hand comes with papers and honor, and the idea that the world is a rule book. His name is Eddard Stark, and he wears winter like armor. He looks at Cersei as if she were a problem that can be solved with a straight line. Cersei smiles the way a cat does when it sits between a bird and an open window. They talk in a garden. The bees hum as if they understand power. She tells him a story with no mercy in it. She tells him the sentence that will echo when he is gone. When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There is no third door. He hears a warning. She hears a vow. The city watches itself in polished shields. People crowd to see justice they will talk about at supper. At Baelor's Sept, breath is a cloak on a summer afternoon. Cersei stands with her son, and the boy tastes what a crown can do. A sword falls. An idea falls with it. The north howls far away. The riverlands burn. The road to safety is made of other people's bones. Cersei moves pieces on a board until the board complains. She wraps her children in silk and steel. She learns that every front door needs a back hallway. She listens to spiders spin stories and decides which ones to break. War spreads like water, finding every crack. It reaches King's Landing as ships full of iron and men who believe in their own shoulders. Green fire is waking under the river. Wildfire is a prayer that forgot who it was written to. On the eve of Blackwater, Cersei sits in a room that remembers queens who feared less. She pours truth into goblets and calls it wine. She keeps Tommen near and her terror nearer. She tells stories that prepare little hearts for impossible minutes. She calls mercy by its darker name, because a mother's love will drink poison if it saves a breath. Outside, drums measure courage. On the river, green light waits to become memory. The night is 2 breaths held at once. Then a comet crawls through ships. Then screams become part of the tide. Then the city is a candle unwilling to be snuffed. Cersei hears victory and does not believe it until her father arrives wearing inevitability. Tywin enters as if he invented doors. The city exhales into his saddle. Cersei puts away the goblet she would have used to end a child's night. She smiles like a survivor who knows the bill is still on the way. Dawn finds ash on windowsills. The Red Keep drinks silence as if it was soup. Soon a new face smiles like spring in a colder garden. Marjorie Tyrell arrives with roses and applause. She stands near Joffrey like a promise that the realm might forgive itself. Cersei studies her as if she were a cipher written on silk. Young, beautiful. The words from the tent return like a song she cannot stop humming. Cersei gathers courtiers the way children gather stones for throwing. She counts allies and discovers how quickly they turn into narratives. She loves her son with a fire that consumes even the walls. She begins to mistake obedience for safety. Joffrey thrives on edges. He grows taller, not deeper. He learns how to perform cruelty in daylight. Cersei tries to teach him when to sheath a smile. He listens the way the sea listens to a single pebble. Plans assemble themselves around a wedding. Silk, gold, sugar, and quiet knives. Cersei watches a cup travel from hand to hand. She watches her boy turn the wrong color. Inheritance rushes in too fast to call a priest. The silence inside her screams. She turns and finds an answer that looks like a brother. Tyrion becomes the shape that tragedy fits best. He becomes convenient. He becomes guilty simply by surviving near her pain. The trial is a theater built on grief. Witnesses climb the stage and sell their hours for breath and coin. Cersei listens to herself distorted in other mouths. She burns with a kind of heat that leaves no ash. The court applauds its own righteousness. It claps until blood appears. Justice dresses like a mummer and thinks no one notices the paint. A champion falls, and the city looks away. Night comes and steals a father. Night comes and opens a door that should have stayed closed. Tywin Lannister dies on a chair called certainty. The house that wore invulnerability like a cloak wakes up shivering. Cersei is not a daughter anymore. She is a weather system. She is a declaration written on iron. She walks through corridors, and everyone steps to the side because the air moved before she did. She decides the future will be a place she survives. Tommen sits on a throne taller than his courage and sweeter than his heart. He is a boy who wants to please the world. He is a boy who thinks kindness can negotiate with wolves. Cersei builds a fortress out of him. She makes the walls with love and fear, brick by brick, bedtime by bedtime. She thinks she can keep him safe by making the map smaller. She thinks safety is a room with one door and she holds the key. The city changes the way old bread changes. It hardens. It crumbles. It refuses to be what it was. A man in rough cloth walks its streets and does not look away from hunger. He speaks softly and carries nothing. He is gravity disguised as humility. The High Sparrow is not a single man. He is a wave made of many hands. Cersei sees an instrument. She picks it up. She tunes it to a pitch that will hurt her enemies. She does not hear the faint note that promises to hurt her too. She arms Faith the way generals arm soldiers. Faith remembers older laws than crowns do. Faith remembers older doors than palaces do. The city kneels and feels taller. The queen across the hall wears innocence like armor. Cersei decides to prove innocence is a fabric that tears. She signs papers that look like victory. She opens prisons that promise to be tools. She smiles at Marjorie, and the smile has teeth. But tools grow hands. Prisons grow keys inside themselves. The Faith militant wakes like a hive. They march without music. They take what they believe belongs to the gods. They come for the Queen Mother in corridors that never learned to be afraid. Cersei fights with everything she has that is not a blade. Pride, memory, the echo of a prophecy she will not bow to. She is taken all the same. She sits in a cell that has no audience. She speaks to herself the way one speaks to a child lost in a crowd. She counts the stones. She learns their names. She waits like a lioness behind bars, and time becomes the handler who does not blink. Days have no corners. Nights have no faces. She sips from a cup that tastes like surrender and spits it back out. They ask her to confess a story she does not want to hear with her own mouth. She makes a trade with silence. She strings a bridge out of humiliation and walks it because the other side is still called home. When at last the door opens, the city is not her city. It is a throat clearing. It is a lesson about feet and eyes. She walks naked through noise. She walks past fingers that throw words sharper than daggers. She walks past spit and laughter, and the old women who used to bless her dress. Her hair is cut close like a secret. Her name is sanded down to bone. She does not break. She remembers the sea under the rock and its patience. She remembers the tent and the taste of copper. She remembers her children. She reaches the Red Keep with feet that have learned the size of the city. She does not sleep. She does not forgive. She begins to sew a new dress out of ashes and resolve. A man with gentle hands and dead birds whispering in his sleeves stands at her side. Wayburn smiles the smile of someone who knows how to make a solution from parts that should not touch. He promises possibilities. He shows her a shadow in armor that remembers a man who loved his strength too much. The mountain moves where she points. In the quiet, they place lanterns beneath a church. They place jars beneath songs. They place patience beneath patience. The sept of Baelor breathes as choirs braid light and sound. The city inhales. It waits for spectacle. It receives judgment. Green opens like a flower with too many petals. It is silent and it is absolute. It eats stone and music and names. It eats the queen she feared. It eats the men who weighed her. It eats the whisper in the tent calling itself younger and more beautiful. Cersei watches from a window where she once measured parades. She sips something dark and does not tremble. Elsewhere, a boy king looks at a world with no soft edges left. He chooses a window because it is the only thing that seems honest. The crown falls without a sound you can catch. Cersei finds a place beyond grief. where decisions live without neighbors. She sits the throne at last. It does not hug her. It does not warm. It fits like a contract. She wears black because color feels like a lie. She wears a crown that remembers all the heads that carried it. She looks at maps and sees only math. She rations and reckons. She takes counsel from a man who looks like a storm walking on two legs. Euron Greyjoy laughs like a sword drawn in the dark. He brings ships and a swagger that says consequences are for other people. Cersei keeps him the way one keeps a dangerous dog chained near the gate. She promises and delays. She smiles and never promises the same thing twice. Across the sea, dragons breathe on the horizon, and a queen with titles gathers a church of former enemies. In the dragon pit, old bones listen to new vows. Cersei meets them all and teaches her face to mean nothing. She hears talk of the dead and the cold and the end of ordinary arithmetic. She learns a word that weighs more than any crown. Together, she refuses it. She chooses later over now. She chooses leverage over trust. She chooses the coin she knows over the currency she does not believe in. Jaime hears, and something in him unties. He has always been a mirror. He has always been a promise. He steps away from the fire to walk into snow. Cersei stays. Winter presses its palm against windows in the capital. Street fires are small and angry. Food becomes a rumor. Cersei keeps her chin level, as if that alone could summon spring. She tells herself a new story. It is about a child not yet born. It is about second chances disguised as firsts. She places a hand on her stomach and feels time making offers. She turns the idea of motherhood in her palm like a jewel. She decides it is leverage and love and salvation and threat. She tells the right people the right pieces of the truth. She keeps the rest beneath her tongue. Across the water, sails the color of drier blood gather like geese. Golden company, golden promises, golden lies. Cersei smiles at gold the way miners smile at daylight. She will buy tomorrow with every coin left. She will spend other people. She will keep her breath. The city grows brittle. The queen beyond the sea learns how to pronounce mercy in fire. Trumpets argue with bells. Cersei stands on a balcony and hears them disagree. She waits for the sound that means survival. She waits for the sound that means she can say, I was right. The sky chooses ruin. Flame licks memories from stone. Halls that carried histories cough them back out as smoke. Cersei walks rooms that taught her how to glide. They do not recognize her. She holds herself like a crown that cannot fall even when the building does. Dust blossoms in slow motion. Walls lean as if listening. Stairs hoard the last of their dignity. She moves through it all with a face carved from winter. She wants to be anywhere but a girl at a door hearing her future. She finds her brother. No one else matters. The world shrinks to the space between two ribs. They hold each other the way people do when the ground is tired of being ground. There is no speech left that is not apology or plea. There are no apologies left that matter. They look at one another and see children racing through sunlit courtyards. They see themselves at every door they ever opened together. They see the life they argued for against gods and men and fathers and dragons and bells. They choose to be small. They choose to be human. They close their eyes and wait for the ceiling to remember falling. The city roars and then grows quiet the way cities do when they have said too much. When the dust settles, only stories keep breathing. Cersei's runs like a river underground. It was a song about love and fear, braided so tight they strangled the singer. It was a dance with a prophecy that stepped on every toe it had. It was a crown that learned how heavy it truly was, only when it could no longer be removed. It was a mother sitting beside sleeping children, memorizing their faces against a night she could not control. It was a girl in a tent tasting copper and deciding to be larger than the walls. It was a woman at a window deciding who would live and who would not, to keep her breath in a smaller world. It was a lioness who believed hunger was a virtue. It was a queen who learned that even lions are made of bone. The sea still breathes under Casterly rock. Waves still polish caves to mirrors. If you listen there, you can hear a childhood trying to speak through stone. If you stand in the ruined streets of a capital and close your eyes, you can almost hear bells deciding whether to ring. You can almost hear a mother whisper the names of her children into the collar of her dress. You can almost hear a laugh that never learned to be careful. You can almost hear the soft click of a goblet being set beside a plan. Her story is not a lesson wrapped in ribbons. It is a record kept by a patient tide. It is a ledger where every entry was paid twice. It is a road where every milestone is a memory that cannot be moved. It is an ember that glows after the fire has left the room. It is the breath taken between a prophecy and the person who refuses to bow to it. Cersei Lannister loved like a fortress. She ruled like a winter. She believed that if she did not take, she would be taken. She believed that if she did not break the world, it would break her. She was right until she was wrong. She was wrong until she was gone. And somewhere beneath all that iron, the girl who listened to the sea is still listening. The waves are still patient. The night is still long. The candles flicker in their goblets and paint three reflections that pretend to be futures. The city sleeps when it can. The lions sleep when they learn how. And the story, at last, whispers itself into quiet. The city opens its eyes to a new smile and pretends it has not been waiting for spring. Roses arrive before she does. Whispers arrive after. Marjorie moves like an answer to a question no one dares to speak in the hall. The people lean toward her the way flowers lean toward light. Cersei watches. Cersei counts. Cersei measures a distance that looks like a single step and feels like a cliff. The prophecy hums in the corners of her mind and refuses to sleep. Younger, more beautiful. The words walk beside her even when she is alone. So she is never alone. At table, Marjorie laughs with the easy music of someone who knows applause by its first breath. In the sept, Marjorie bows like a promise. In the corridors, Marjorie smiles with her eyes first, as if secrets greet each other before mouths do. Cersei drinks the room the way a hawk drinks the horizon. She tastes risk in the sugar. She tastes ambition in the cream. She tastes knives under the napkins. The Queen Mother learns the texture of a rival's shadow. It is soft. It is everywhere. It is harder to kill because it makes the room feel warm. Joffrey sits between them like a flame that mispronounces mercy. He plays cruelty like a flute. He looks at Marjorie the way a boy stares at a toy that does not break when it should. He looks at Cersei the way a king measures a tutor he has outgrown. Cersei sets her jaw. Cersei protects him as if protection were a religion and fear its scripture. A wedding blooms with banners and songs and cups that kiss a lip too long. Sugar roses lean toward gold. A gold leans toward poison. So, laughter forgets to look down. Joffrey lifts the world to his mouth, and the world decides it does not want to live there. Purple climbs his neck like a heraldic beast that forgot the rules. Cersei's heart breaks the sound barrier, and no one hears it. Time thins to a thread. The thread snaps. The mother becomes a blade searching for a throat. Tyrion's face is a door that fits her grief's key. Grief demands an answer, even if the question is wrong. She points. The realm breathes in the wrong direction. The feast turns to a courtroom without benches. The bride's smile falls through the floor. The dead do not argue. The living learn how quickly certainty can be rented. The trial begins in whispers and ends in shouts. Cersei sits like a law that grew legs. Witnesses climb the scaffold of memory and hang truths until they look like stories. Servants pour what they were paid to see. Courtiers remember what would help them sleep. The air grows heavy with oaths that have nowhere to go. Oberyn's eyes smile like daggers laid on velvet. The mountain stands as if trees had decided to learn how to hate. A duel pretends to be justice, and everyone applauds the pretense. Cersei does not blink. The viper dances with a song made of questions. The mountain answers with gravity. For a heartbeat, the world belongs to a man who wants names. For a heartbeat, the world tilts toward an answer. For a heartbeat, mercy hides behind a brick and plans its entrance. Then the skull cracks like a commandment, and the gods look away. Cersei tastes vindication with iron on its tongue. She calls it law. She calls it order. She tells herself it is safety wearing a uniform. In the corridor of endings, a door opens that should not. Her father's certainty meets a bowstring's memory. Tyrion walks a night only he can write. A crossbow speaks through him. A father falls into a silence that thinks itself permanent. Cersei's world loses its spine and decides to stand anyway. She is no longer anyone's daughter. She is the climate. She is the distance between winter and a torch. She gathers Tommen like a candle cupped from the wind. He is soft as bread. He is kind as a mistake. He believes that gentle hands can move iron maps. Cersei teaches him to sign and smile and say yes when the word keeps him breathing. She wraps him in velvet and edits the air around him. She builds a fortress out of bedtime stories and decrees. She trusts the walls. She forgets that walls grow doors when enough heads lean against them. Marjorie returns to the stage with patience and honey. She calls Tommen by his name and makes it sound like a promise. She feeds cats and old women and the rumor that the realm can be kind again. The city looks up from its bowl and nods. She feels the prophecy's fingers threading her hair. Younger, more beautiful. She follows the whisper to its answer and finds Faith dressed in threadbare cloth. The high sparrow smells like kitchens and rain. His eyes are wells that do not mind the drought. He does not care for courtiers. He cares for sin the way a farmer cares for stones in a field. He lifts them and sets them aside, and the field changes. Cersei sees a tool where others see a sermon. So, she has used knives of every length. She has used coin and rumor and witness. Now she will use mercy sharpened to a point. She gives the poor a uniform and calls it piety. She gives the gods a militia and calls it balance. She gives the barefoot a badge and calls it law. The faith militant wakes like a hive that remembered its queen in heaven. They scrape symbols into skin and build prisons out of certainty. They sing songs that are also keys. Cersei nods. Cersei feeds them. Cersei sets them upon the garden she once pruned. Marjorie's fragrance is declared dangerous. Loras's vows are put on scales older than the rock. Books, beds, and brothers become confessional furniture. Testimony grows vines through marble. Cersei watches innocence learn the weight of proof. She watches a crown discover that approval can be taken as easily as it was given. She watches a city kneel for a different reason. Tommen shivers when the gods raise their voices. He reaches for his mother and finds politics in her hands. He reaches for his bride and finds thorns in her veil. He reaches for his crown and finds that it is heavier in temples. Cersei decides to teach him to look away while she stares for him. She arranges tea like an army. She invites the scent of guilt to sit down and pour itself another cup. She threads a story through kettle-black mouths and lets the gods pull. A queen is weighed. A brother is measured. The scales bless no one perfectly. Cersei smiles when math chooses her side. She applauds humility as long as it kneels where she points. She believes the machine belongs to the hand that cranked it. She does not see how small the hand is against the wheel. She does not hear the hymn that is also a sentence. In the sept, candles watch trials without blinking. The sparrow speaks like a broom, and the dirt is grateful to be noticed. He does not fear the room. He does not fear the faces. He fears what the words will do if they are not penned to something older than thrones. He gives the city a mirror it cannot refuse to hold. Cersei's reflection stands behind his shoulder. She folds her arms. She waits for the final sum. She plans the next move while the ink is still wet. She counts shadows. She forgets to count her own. Sir Loras kneels and cannot straighten. Marjorie stands and cannot bend. The court learns to shiver without moving. Cersei inhales the lesson and calls it victory. She hears the street say her name again, this time with less spit. She thinks the tide has learned her shape. She returns to the Red Keep and trims roses from the hedgerows of memory. She lets Tommen sleep. She lets Qyburn talk. She lets the mountain breathe like a wind that does not care about candle flames. Letters move like ice flows. Gold relocates. Keys exchange pockets. The gods smile from stone and wait for a price to knock. The price knocks. It arrives wearing her sins like jewelry borrowed for a festival. It arrives in sandals. It arrives with a book older than debts. It arrives in voices that learn to be louder together. They ask her to come quietly. She laughs once, and the sound has teeth. They do not laugh. They weigh her. They find the kind of weight that makes floors think of cracking. They lead her to a room that has no corners, only continuations. She sits. She chooses not to count these walls their victories. She counts herself instead. She counts every hurt she kept as sharpened treasure. She counts every time love made her louder than caution. She counts children in the dark the way sailors count stars. 1, 2, 3. A hush follows the number that never learned to grow older. She forces breath through the ache like a queen forcing a treaty through a crowd. They speak to her about confession. They tell her about the shape truth takes when the gods press it between their thumbs. She knows the shape of truth. It is whatever keeps her children breathing. It is whatever keeps her crown on a hook only she can reach. It is whatever cuts a door into prophecy and gives it hinges. She offers it in pieces. She polishes some and hides others. She answers questions and edits the punctuation. She breaks what will not serve and burns what might. The gods are patient because they believe they invented time. She is patient because she knows she can reinvent fate. Word by word, she stitches a road back to herself. Pride watches and pretends not to be injured. Shame waits by the door like a midwife. Outside, the city learns how to hold its breath for someone it does not love. Inside, a lioness learns to sleep with both eyes open and both closed. She remembers Maggie's tent and the way rain wrote on the canvas. She remembers Joanna's absence like a lock no key can satisfy. She remembers Tywin's lessons and the sound iron makes when it is sure of itself. She remembers Jaime's hand as a sentence unfinished. She remembers Joffrey's laugh and refuses to let it become only a warning. She remembers Tommen's kindness and refuses to let it become only a wound. She remembers Myrcella's smile, as if the sun apologized to her every morning for being late. The faith brings water and questions. The faith brings silence and expectation. The faith brings a mirror that does not care for flattery. Cersei holds its gaze until the glass warps. She believes she can bend even reflections if she looks long enough. She believes the gods are men in robes and men are only nations of vanity. She believes she is not finished. The mountain waits beyond prayers. Qyburn's footsteps move like commas outside sentences that are not yet written. Tommen sits on a chair and learns how thin a throne can feel when your feet do not touch the floor. Marjorie counts beads and laws and smiles that have to be smuggled. The sparrow sweeps. The city learns to be quiet to hear itself. The Red Keep misses her like a dog who waits by a door and does not understand afternoons. Wine finds other mouths. Counselors practice distances. Sycophants practice new songs. Enemies practice patience. Allies rehearse absence. In the cell, time folds and unfolds. A linen kept too long in a drawer. Morning is a rumor. Evening is a habit. Cersei maps a path across tiles with her eyes. She learns which grout lines are slightly darker. She knows the weight of the pitcher. She knows the music of the latch. She knows the smell of forgiveness when it pretends to be a bargain. She offers a bargain of her own. She will walk if it means returning. She will kneel if it means standing later. She will confess what can be washed away and keep what cannot be taken. She will be seen. She will not be ended. They agree, but the gods ask for spectacle. They always do. For now, the agreement breathes on a windowsill between two candles. For now, the city dreams of gossip and mercy in the same bed. For now, Cersei closes her eyes and walks the halls in memory. She turns left where no left exists. She climbs a stair that is only a whisper. She steps into a room that is only a word she refuses to let die. Mother. The syllables cradle her while she sharpens herself. Queen. The syllables armor her while she sleeps with her hands open. Lioness. The syllables prowl the rim of her breath and keep watch. She will return to stone and light. She will return to silk and iron. She will teach the map her name again. She will decide who stands where when the bells do not ring. She will show the prophecy the courtesy of an argument. She will show her enemies the courtesy of an ending. She will be the weather her city wakes to, not the rumor it whispers about. In the thin blue before dawn, footsteps count toward her door. Keys think like birds. Metal kisses metal. The world enters. The gods present their terms again, this time with daylight folded into them. Cersei stands. Cersei breathes. Cersei accepts what she will turn into a lesson for someone else. Outside, the city blinks and pretends it has not been waiting to see a queen without a crown. Inside, she gathers what is left that cannot be taken. Name, will, the memory of a child's hand asleep in hers. She follows the light. She follows the voice that calls her back to the stage. She follows the thread of herself through a maze designed to make her smaller. She lets them lead her toward a future she plans to edit. She tells the air a promise in a voice too soft for anyone but the air to hear. I am not finished. The air tells her a promise in return. Neither is the sea beneath the rock. The key turns, and the world she built steps back to watch. Light arrives like a witness. Air moves as if the city itself is taking a breath to speak her name, and then deciding not to. She stands in a doorway carved by a god she refused to fear. She leaves herself behind like a cloak and keeps only the parts that cannot be taken. Name, will, the memory of 3 small hands that once trusted sleep to finish the story. Feet on stone. Every step writes its own sentence. The corridor lengthens, as if time wants to see how long a queen can remain a woman without armor. They take the rings and the silk and the ceremony. They cannot take the spine. They cannot take the eyes. They cannot take the animal that learned to endure before it learned to rule. Outside, the city is a throat cleared for cruelty. Bells do not ring. Mouths do. Windows learn how to become weapons without glass. Words are thrown first, then laughter, then fruit that forgot sweetness. She does not look for friendly faces because she is done with fiction. She looks ahead. She holds the shape of her body together with breath. She thinks of the sea grinding stone to mirrors. She thinks of Maggie's tent and copper on the tongue. She thinks of Tywin's lessons and the spaces between them where Mercy used to nap. She thinks of a boy whose smile was a knife and a boy whose heart was a soft room with no locks. She thinks of a girl whose name means golden afternoon and how the sun can be stolen from a season. She collects herself in the syllables of those names. She walks inside a river made of sound. Shame is a word taught to children by those who fear their future. It slides off the bone. It dissolves on the teeth. It does not own her. She steps. She steps again. The crowd grows drunk on its own voice and it sings a song that will never enter a prayer. It learns the taste of power and mistakes it for bread. She keeps moving, because moving is the only sentence that makes sense. Her body becomes a metronome, measuring the distance between humiliation and home. At last, the walls she taught to obey remember her. The red keep opens its ribs. Qyburn waits, where loyalty learned to go when it ran out of other rooms. His eyes are soft. His hands are careful. His mind is a scalpel wrapped in velvet. He covers her as if the act could reverse the walk. It cannot. She does not ask for reversal. She asks for the future. He nods as if he has already placed it in a jar on a shelf. Water, cloth, silence that understands how to speak later. She is bathed not to be made pure, but to be made ready. The heat draws the cold from bone like poison from a wound. She breathes until breathing is not a task. A shadow in armor stands in the doorway and makes doorways smaller. The thing that was once a man keeps its vows without language. It will keep them until language remembers how to be afraid. Night comes with a clean, unearned face. Sleep arrives like a spy and leaves with nothing. Morning lifts its pale coin above roofs. She meets it at a window and pretends it is not looking back at her. They speak of trial. They speak of gods and scales and witnesses in their best clothes. She remembers the last time witnesses tried to sell her the end of a story. She remembers the stage. She remembers the poison of certainty disguised as law. She decides not to play a part written by hands that do not know her. She whispers to Qyburn, and the whisper finds corridors it already knows. In cellars, a green memory turns in its sleep. In tunnels, children with pockets full of other people's secrets learn a new song with knives in it. In chapels, men who made their mouths into hammers practice the sound of judgment. She does not rehearse. She aims. The day chooses white. The city wears expectation like a second skin. The sept pulls the faithful inward as if the stone itself were a mouth. Isel wakes to be old again and finds a flock of boys who do not believe in age. He is shown how quickly credentials can be unsaid. A Lord Regent presses his hand to a note he will not finish reading. A cousin who once smiled in the wrong direction follows a candle into the veins of the city and finds that fire is older than prayer. Above, benches filled with names the realm never learned to pronounce without a title. Marjorie arrives in a dress designed to remind stone how to soften. She reads the room the way a surgeon reads a wound. She is not fooled by ceremony. She is not fooled by sunlight. Her eyes climb the walls and refuse to rest. She turns to the king's man in linen and says the one word that should be engraved above every door the gods pretend to own. Leave. Her voice is a hand tugging a sleeve. The hand is not strong enough. The sleeve belongs to a man who thinks piety is immune to math. The high sparrow steps onto the air he believes he built. He has the patience of a library. He has the cruelty of dust. He counts sins like a clerk, with a ledger written on the inside of his eyelids. He smiles like a broom. He does not see the spark riding up from the floor behind his creed. Beyond the Red Keep is a cathedral of silence. Cersei's feet know the stone by its first name. Her gown is black as a closed book. Her rings have become decisions. The mountain blocks a door with the geography of his body. Tommen tries to pass. The helmet does not move. The boy is gently caged by something gentler than iron and harder than mercy. He returns to his chair and learns how to be smaller than it. He stares at the window as if it could teach him to become air. Cersei pours wine that remembers a daughter who will never taste it. The glass is an hour, and she drinks it carefully. Bells consider ringing. Candles consider dripping. Breath considers returning to the sky. The first crack is felt before it is heard. The nave lifts as if it wants to fly. The choir inhales a final note, and the song never lands. Green opens. Green blooms. Green remembers a king who hid it like a dragon under a city. Green swallows oak and iron and lace and kind words and cruel ones, without pausing to sort them. The sound arrives late, like thunder. It turns glass into rain. It turns names into smoke. It turns a promise into a picture that cannot be mended. Marjorie becomes a bright idea extinguished mid-sentence. Loras becomes a boy in armor with all the years he will not have folded into his last breath. Kevan becomes a line between brothers that will never be drawn straight. The High Sparrow becomes a concept that forgot bodies do not burn philosophically. Stone forgets how to stand. Light forgets how to be gentle. The city learns to be quiet in a new way. Cersei watches and does not blink. Her mouth finds the shape of the lesson again. Power does not ask. It decides. She descends into the catacombs, where vengeance cools and men's usefulness ends. A woman who wore kindness like a blade is strapped to a wooden idea of justice. Septa Unella blinks, as if sleep will interrupt pain. Cersei tells her the truth. She tells her that she enjoyed her work. She tells her that mercy is only beautiful when it chooses you. She tells her that a bell rung the wrong way is only a hammer with illusions. She places a monster in the room to teach the body what the soul refused to learn. She leaves before the lesson finishes, because curiosity is beneath her station now. The air above the city tastes of coins and regret. In a room that used to be a sun, a boy stands with his crown and chooses the only door that still feels honest. He steps into the silence he thinks he deserves. He falls like a prayer dropped before the altar. The crown lands without a noise, fit for ceremony. Cersei enters the room that will never return what it took. She is the only moving thing. Grief arrives without language. It sits with her. It stays. She does not let it speak first. She speaks. She names the shape the prophecy drew in candle smoke. She counts 3 golden shrouds without moving her lips. She does not cry where other people can see. She does not collapse where stones can learn her weight. She makes arrangements. She builds a pyre inside herself where the world cannot shiver it out. When the day comes, the hall is a throat through which the future passes. Black walks where color once pretended to be truth. Qyburn carries a circlet as if it were a sentence. He says the words that tell a city to place its hope in iron again. She sits the throne that has been waiting for her since someone welded swords to a memory and called it history. The weight does not surprise her. The cold does not either. The hall does not cheer. It exhales like an animal whose master has changed, but the leash remains. She looks down from a mountain made of decisions and sees that every path is winter. Long may she reign, someone whispers, because someone always does. The words mean only this: we are not ready to argue with her today. From the window, ravens write thin lines across a sky that now belongs to snow. Winter arrives without apology. Famine is a clerk with a quick pen. The river moves as if guarding coins no one will ever see again. Bread becomes a rumor carried in sleeves. Wine becomes medicine. Medicine becomes a dream. Cersei spreads maps and treats them like patients. She binds wounds with decrees. She cauterizes with example. She draws lines around loyalty and watches men decide which side of those lines they want to eat on. Some kneel as if knees were made for nothing else. Some hesitate and find out what hesitation costs near a queen who hates the word tomorrow. She taxes the sun when it shows itself. She taxes the night for pretending not to watch. She keeps the city breathing with the efficiency of a surgeon and the mercy of an avalanche. Letters come soaked in cold. Dawn sends silence and knives. The Reach sends ash and absence. The Westerlands send the sound of a vault closing. The Riverlands send crows that look tired. The North sends snow and a rumor about dead men walking without their names. Across the sea, sails breed on horizons. Dragons practice the alphabet of fire over cities that still remember the old tongue. A woman gathers titles the way storms gather names. Cersei hides her fear and feeds her resolve. She sharpens Qyburn's whispers into needles. Little birds learn to fly between rumors and return with meat. Lists are made. Doors are knocked upon. Choices are simplified. The court is an aquarium where sharks pretend to discuss poetry. Cersei does not pretend. She asks for outcomes dressed as advice. She asks for loyalty dressed as strategy. She asks for survival dressed as glory and receives enough of each to continue. She walks the Red Keep like a ghost who refuses to be told she is a ghost. She remembers corridors by the histories they once contained. She charts new histories by the echoes they return now. In the throne room, the light has become a harsher instrument. It does not flatter the iron. It does not flatter the faces. It simply reveals. The court learns to lower its eyes with elegance. It learns to deliver bad news as if it were a bouquet someone else ordered. It learns to wear black the way people wear skin. Cersei learns the timetable of desperation. She learns what hour a city cries. She learns the price of dignity measured in loaves, not honor. She pays what keeps the walls upright. She refuses what feeds memory instead of armies. She builds the future for everything she spends and tells herself the future will sign the receipt. At night she sits where kings have bled and listens to the wind test the stones for secrets. Somewhere below, the thing in armor stands where doors think twice. Somewhere beyond, Qyburn rearranges the skeleton of the possible. Somewhere else, a fleet is taught to grin. She draws breath and tastes iron. She draws another and tastes ash. She draws a third and tastes the line between. Her dreams are careful. They enter her sleep on bare feet. They wear the faces she cannot afford to see by daylight. Joffrey, unruly and alive, demanding applause from a heaven that does not clap. Myrcella, sunlight and sea salt, asking nothing but bringing warmth. Tommen, a kitten under a mountain of crown, smiling as if nothing heavy had ever been invented. She wakes, and the room is the same room it was when she closed her eyes. She stands. She reigns. She becomes a weather report written in human decisions. When word arrives that the East is exporting fire and foreign hope, she does not send for poets. She sends for ledgers. She sends for men who understand that numbers are only knives with better manners. She asks how long. She asks how many. She asks where to bleed to make the rest of the body keep walking. She does not ask whether. She knows weather is for people who still believe in luck. Messengers leave with their spines perfectly straight. Ships are counted. Walls are measured. Arrows are kissed by fletchers who pray with their hands. The city drums its fingers on its own ribs. Snow begins to fall in a place that once laughed at snow. It melts, then it doesn't. People adjust their steps. The market learns new prices for old hunger. The tavern learns to pour slowly. The sept is a memory someone dared the sky to swallow. Cersei watches the empty space where her enemies became light and smoke, and tells herself that absence can be a foundation. She builds upon it. She sets a chair for fear at her table and does not let it speak. She sets a chair for rage and feeds it only what can be digested. She sets a chair for doubt and keeps it standing so long it learns where it is not welcome. In the mirror, her dress is the night deciding to become a wall. Her hair is a crown that insulted scissors. Her eyes are a gate that only opens inward. She practices the expression that means the audience is over. She practices the one that means the sentence is already served. She practices the rare curve of the mouth that tells the city it may sleep. When the ravens bring news of dragons lighting their own torches in the dark, she does not look up at the sky. She looks down at the map. She moves a counter and erases a city she never liked. She tells the room what it is now allowed to say. She tells herself the same thing. She summons the hand she put on a chair that used to correct her and now repeats her. Qyburn speaks like a soft hinge. He has ideas that wear masks. He has results that do not require applause. He assures her that the world still obeys levers if you can find the places to anchor them. She tells him to build stronger fulcrums. He nods. He always nods. From the parapets, the world looks like a story that forgot its author. From the streets, the world looks like a stomach. From the throne, the world looks like a list. She checks boxes. She breaks quills. She signs deaths onto parchment and insists they are lives saved in a language the realm will only understand later. At dusk, the river is a bandage. At dawn, the river is a blade. Her days are both. She visits the room where flames ate a hymn. There is no room. There is only air with an argument in it. She walks the perimeter of absence and feels taller. She believes the gods will not argue with someone who proved they have lungs just like men. She believes in the crown because it is heavy. She believes in herself because everything else has become story. Night after night, torches lift and lower, and watchmen teach their eyes the new edges of the city. Night after night, kitchens count salt. Night after night, brothels sell either warmth or forgetfulness, depending on who you are asking. Night after night, Cersei decides. She decides to hold. She decides to cut. She decides to wait. She decides to lie, until the lie becomes a staircase she can ascend. On mornings when the wind enters the hall uninvited, she hears the rock in its voice, and remembers being a girl who wanted to be larger than every door. She is also smaller than the sky. She refuses to be reminded. She teaches the sky to be a ceiling. She teaches the ceiling to lower, if it must. Beyond the narrow sea, a woman believes in better. Beyond the trident, a man of snow believes in necessary. Between them, Cersei believes in hers. In hers, bells will ring only when she tells them to. In hers, prophecies are calendars to be corrected. In hers, love is a key kept on a chain under the breastbone. In hers, fear is a staircase leading down to a room with no windows, where it can argue with itself until it forgets the language. Winter settles its coins on every sill. She counts them and claims them as tax. The city learns to survive the way wolves do when they decide not to hunt, only to outlast. She calls that policy. The council calls it awe. The streets call it whatever keeps the soup kitchens from dying. There are moments when the hall empties and she hears her name crawling along the walls like ivy. There are moments when she sits alone and speaks to no one, because there is no one left who can afford to hear her. There are moments when she wonders whether the hardest part of power is how much memory it requires. She remembers enough. She remembers the feel of a boy's hair beneath her hand. She remembers the echo of a girl's laugh in tiled baths. She remembers a son who thought goodness could negotiate with the world, and a world that never once signed a treaty with goodness. She remembers a father who did not believe in forgiveness and forgave himself every sin called decision. She remembers a brother who loved her as if they were one body, and a world that insisted bodies cannot be one. She remembers a witch who said what would happen and a woman who decided to argue with fire. She closes her eyes and holds all of it at once until it stops being many and becomes one heavy, perfect thing. When she opens them, a raven sits on the sill with a letter that smells like salt and conquest. She takes it and does not flinch. Words march across the page with soldier feet. She reads the number of ships. She reads the names of houses that have learned to say someone else's name without blushing. She reads the distance between here and the storm, pretending to be salvation. She folds the paper and places it where secrets go to be made into tools. She stands. She tells the hall to wake. She tells the banners to remember the wind. She tells the armorers to teach metal the virtue of speed. She tells herself the same thing. On the day snow chooses not to melt, she walks the ramparts and watches the city be small and brave. She allows herself one honest thought, shaped like a knife. Let them come. It rings in her skull like a bell that owes her money. It rings again. It rings until the silence afterward sounds like applause. She goes to the map and places her hand on the capital. She closes her eyes and sees green singing under stone. She opens them and sees only lines and names and choices. She breathes once, twice, 3 times. Then she begins to spend what she has left: iron, fire, fear, time, herself. The wind over Blackwater Bay carries the sound of hammers and hope. Ships arrive like teeth in a grin that means to bite the world. Euron laughs, as if storms are jokes he told Firster. He bows like a knife. He flatters like a rope. Cersei stands on the high stone and measures his usefulness by how quickly his eyes return to her face. He talks of victory as if it were a woman who owes him a letter. He offers a fleet the size of a boast. He offers fear that floats. She offers a promise that is not a promise. She offers tomorrow to a man who only believes in now. He leaves smelling of salt and certainty. She turns and breathes the colder air that belongs to rooms where crowns think. The Golden Company marches inside her mind before it marches anywhere else. Numbers are armor when you cannot wear dragons. She buys time, as if time were grain in a winter that refuses to end. She pays with futures and the coin of other people's sons. Across the water, a different future sharpens its wings. Across the frozen air, a different winter walks on legs that forgot how to be mortal. The city eats and listens and waits to be told what it is. In the dragon pit, history sits down to watch itself argue. Bones curve like questions that were never answered. The north sends snow that stands like a man. The east sends fire that sits like a queen. The south sends stone that refuses to kneel. Cersei arrives with eyes that learn to be windows with the shutters nailed shut. She looks at the beast brought in chains. She looks at the mouths that call it proof. She looks at the future as if daring it to speak first. She nods when nodding cannot be mistaken for a bow. She smiles when smiling cannot be mistaken for surrender. She sells agreement and delivers delay. Jaime hears the sale and sees the debt. He watches the arithmetic of survival cross a line it cannot return from. He leaves in winter, and winter follows him like a rumor. Cersei stands very still. So still the room circles her instead. She places a hand upon her belly and finds a kind of map there. If life is a lever, she will pull. If hope is a rumor, she will spread it to herself. She tells the right people the right truth. She keeps the rest under her tongue where even gods cannot read it. In the courtyards, the scorpions grow like iron flowers. In the towers, the watchmen teach their eyes new angles. On the sea, the sellswords count gold the way loyalists count blessings. The throne room becomes a rehearsal for the word afterward. She sits as if the chair were an argument she is winning. Qyburn unwraps ideas like gifts meant for no one else. He shows her the distance between thought and devastation, and how to walk it without leaving footprints. She nods when visions match necessities. She shakes her head when science remembers to be squeamish. Night scrapes its back along the city. Morning scrapes it again. Ravens carve letters into the sky and drop them in her lap. A dragon falls like a god that misjudged the wind. The sea swallows the boast Euron wore as perfume. The beach turns to graveyard so fast the tide forgets which direction is which. Cersei watches from windows where she once measured parades. She files the image next to losses that taught her to speak more softly and hurt more accurately. Missandei stands above the city and brings a different silence. The word Dracarys becomes a prayer with no altar left to hold it. Cersei hears it and understands. Mercy will not be asking for an audience. She refuses to give one. The gate stands with its shoulders back. The Golden Company polishes its reputation in daylight, or banners hang, as if they are not afraid of fire. Within the keep, wine remembers darker mornings and offers its usual forgetfulness. Cersei does not drink. She holds the cup as if it were a witness. She sets it down because today requires hands that know how to close. The bells discuss their duty in secret. They have rung for joy. They have rung for grief. They have rung for gods and kings and markets and weddings that should not have been. Today they will ring because the world wants to be told what it feels. The sun lifts its pale coin. The dragon lifts a darker one. The walls learn that height is not the same as safety. The first gate is a sentence ended by flame. The second gate remembers the first and chooses to be fast. Men who are paid to be brave discover the price includes moments like this. They run, they stand, they run again. The Golden Company turns to face a story that has stopped pretending to be anything else. It breaks where stories break when their author becomes the sky. The city inhales smoke and memory and tries not to choke. Cersei watches with the stillness of someone who has walked through louder rooms. She trusts stone too long. She trusts numbers too far. She trusts that fear is a currency every queen can still afford. The bells begin. They move through air like old fishermen hauling a net of years. They reach ear and spine and knee. They reach the dragon. They reach the queen inside the dragon. They reach the map. They reach Cersei. The sound says enough. The sound says stop. The sound says surrender is a language even fire can learn. The sky answers with a different grammar. Flame writes its own treaty across streets that never learned to swim. Houses cough out their families. Markets spill fruit that will never be sweet again. The Red Keep shudders as if waking from a dream that felt too much like future. Cersei stands very straight, as if posture can hold a building together. She tells herself that mercy is for mornings without boards across the windows. She tells herself that the higher you climb, the more you must become steel. She tells herself she is not afraid. She is not lying. She is also remembering every small hand that ever trusted her with a night's safe end. Dust enters the hall and bows to no one. Qyburn arrives with the mathematics of retreat. He speaks staircases and corridors and safer rooms. He speaks ships and water and angles of escape. He speaks the truth that the map has declared a different queen for this city. Cersei hears the words and translates them into moments. She has exactly the number of moments a collapsing world will give her. She takes them. She moves. The mountain follows with steps that make the floor forget its age. Outside, stone falls into the business it always wanted. The air thickens with things that were ceilings. The city's breath becomes counting. One cough, two coughs, then none. On the stairs, a brother returns wearing snow and blood, and the stubbornness of vows made to himself. Jaime stands where he once swore he would never stand again. He looks at her and sees 1,000 rooms at once. He sees courtyards that smelled of lemon and steel. He sees beds that never learned how to forgive. He sees children asleep in the echo of their own names. He sees the witch and the window and the tower and the price. Cersei looks at him, and the crown slides off the moment like water. She is the girl who wanted to be larger than doors. She is the woman who argued with prophecy until prophecy brought a roof. She is a mother with no hands left to hold. He touches her face as if the world was still listening for gentleness. It is not. They move through the hall where maps have been painted like the inside of a skull. The black paint cracks where the city cracks. Their footprints leave small islands of clean in a sea of dust. They descend into passages that remember better nights. They find men arguing with death using swords and familiarity. Sandor walks into the future he always intended to fight. Gregor forgets obedience at last and remembers only the joy of breaking. Qyburn instructs a mountain, and the mountain teaches him what hands were made to do to bodies that believed in voices. Cersei edges past As stone learns to hate itself, the brothers begin a dance the gods will pretend they never choreographed. Fire below, night above. Eyes narrowing as if to cut less air, Cersei does not look back, because looking back is a luxury for walls that are not falling. She steps into corridors that used to lead out. They lead in. She steps into rooms that used to open. They close. She arrives at the mouth of the tunnel, where boats once waited like promises. Bricks have learned to say no. Water waits on the other side like a sentence she will not get to finish. She puts a hand against the blockage, as if stone can be moved by grief. It cannot. She turns, and the only world left is a man she once knew better than honesty. He holds her the way pillars hold roofs. She holds him the way roofs remember to be grateful. She says the thing pride was too loud to permit. She speaks fear into the small space between his shoulder and her mouth. I do not want to die. Her voice is the same as any voice that loved. It is the same as any voice that tried to survive long enough to make a child laugh again. He says the thing he could only ever say to her. Nothing else matters. He says it as bricks consider the merits of weight. He says it as the last hallway becomes a part of the earth again. He says it because in the end every crown is an anecdote, and every oath is a pillow, and every map is a painting of a river that will one day change its course. The ceiling sways like a tired dancer. The pillars kneel without being asked. The dust arrives before the stone. It arrives like a curtain, then like a sea. They close their eyes, because eyes are for later. They hold because hands are for now. The city above them burns and rings and finally stops choosing. The city inside them remembers the first time they promised not to be apart. It keeps the promise and ends it. When the world stops speaking, silence continues the conversation alone. It tells the story to the ruins and the rats and the air that used to be prayers. It tells the story to the throne that now remembers no one, and to the bells that forget how to ring. It tells the story to the sea because the sea always listens. Down in the dark, two bodies become the kind of secret even kings cannot purchase. Up in the light, ash falls like a new kind of snow. Dragons carve their signatures into the morning and leave before anyone can ask them to spell it again. Soldiers sit on stones that used to be steps and relearn the language of breathing. The Red Keep wears daylight the way broken teeth wear pity. In a quiet pocket of ruin, a hand finds gold where flesh used to pretend it was permanent. The jewels tell the truth. The truth is heavier than it looks. Men lift rocks and find the oldest kind of ending. They find faces that once decided the price of everything. They find an embrace that outlived politics by a moment and outlived prophecy by a heartbeat. They find a queen who believed that to love was to keep, and a knight who believed that to keep was to love. They cover them with cloth because even enemies understand certain courtesies. They carry them because even victors understand certain weights. The city begins to learn its new name by taste. It will be a long lesson. It will not be finished by dusk or by any king who claims it is. Somewhere far from stone that fell, someone speaks of Cersei with hatred and is not wrong. Somewhere else, someone speaks of her with pity and is not wrong. Somewhere else again, someone lowers their voice as if approaching a grave and is not wrong. Stories do not ask to be fair. They ask to be told. This one moves like a tide around a rock that never quite disappears. She was a lioness who taught the map to fear a woman's patience. She was a daughter who could not grow smaller than a father's shadow. She was a mother who mistook possession for protection until possession broke her arms. She was a queen who finally wore the crown with no one left to see how it fit. She was a lover who learned that there are two ways to share a heart, together or not at all. The rock still listens to the sea. The sea still keeps a ledger it never shows to anyone. If you stood tonight above those deep caverns and held your breath, you could hear waves pulling at stone with ancient, faithful work. If you stood in a ruined street and closed your eyes, you could hear bells arguing with themselves. If you stood in the silent hall of a shattered keep, you could hear the echo of a goblet being set down beside a plan. Somewhere, a child is born into a house that will never stop inventing masks. Somewhere, a mother holds a new name and hopes the prophecy will be kind this time. Somewhere, a woman walks a corridor with bare feet and refuses to be told that mercy is not a language she may speak. Somewhere, the Game of Thrones continues without remembering the first players well enough to learn. But the night remembers. The night keeps an archive of breaths. It keeps the one Joffrey used to take before laughter. It keeps the one Myrcella used to take when the sea surprised her. It keeps the one Tommen used to take when the cat chose his lap. It keeps the one Cersei used to take before she said the sentence that divided lives. It keeps the last one she took when she remembered she was not a crown, but a person with a heartbeat. It keeps them all and does not drop any. And when sleep comes to you, if you are quiet, you can hear the night turn a page in that archive. You can hear the sea working the old rock into a surface that reflects stars. You can hear the slow, patient victory of time over fury. You can hear the city learning to call itself by a new name without forgetting the old one. You can hear the bells refusing to choose, then finally resting. You can hear a lioness somewhere farther than memory, still walking, still proud, still wrong and still right, still human, still hers. You can hear her say once more to no one and to everyone that love was the first and last argument. You can hear her decide again and again in rooms made only of breath that nothing else mattered. And then you can sleep because the story has put down its crown. And then you can sleep because the fire has cooled enough to watch without burning. And then you can sleep because the city at last is quiet enough to dream without asking permission.